Okay, everyone. So now that we have that out of the way, I would like to welcome Laura Mushumanski. I hope I didn't ruin that. Did I butcher that?
It's good. It's good. Mushumanski. Okay, let's get started. So my slide is quite long, or my presentation. It's about 43 slides. So we might not have time for questions. I did put in the chat at the very top. There's a Google form if you want to fill that out. Also, if you want a copy of the slides, just fill that form out too. And then when Crystal makes it available for the recorded lecture, or sorry, the recorded presentation available, I'll also send that in an email just for everyone's convenience. So my name is Laura Mushumanski. I'm a fourth year student undergrad student at the University of Alberta. I started off studying dietetics about 10 years ago, and then I switched over to psychology within the last couple of years. This degree has taken me almost 10 years to get. And so right now, I am mainly focusing on traditional Indigenous foods, brain and behavior, a lot to do with nutrition, how symbiotic relationships with food, how that impacts us. And then, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm like looking at all of your screens right now, watching me. So I'm not used to this. Anyway, so what was I gonna say? Yeah, so I was doing a workshop series. I started a program a couple of years ago called the Indigenous Campus Community Nutrition Program. And so when I tutored Cree on campus, there was a lot of students that I noticed they were really passionate about things that, giving back to the community. And there was kind of, I knew a lot of people, say working for the government or for the city, other organizations. And then there's these students, and there's kind of like a gap kind of between that. And so what I found was with this program, I was able to give these students opportunity to present in a safer environment where they can talk about something that what they're really passionate about. And so in saying that, the program started. So eight it was 8 series. And so all the students at the time were from the University of Alberta. And so they're all Indigenous students, whether they were undergrad or graduate students. And so I started doing my presentation. Actually, the first time I did this, it was a little bit different. This is more psychology kind of based, so talking more about like the physical parts of the brain, what's happening, just to have a better understanding. And so for me, that was really important with kind of my own experience with trauma and growing up. So my mother is Métis and my father is Polish and Ukrainian. And so I went through a lot of traumatic childhood experiences, and I always had the urge to, or inkling to, kind of find out what's going on with me, why I feel a certain way. And so the one thing that kind of was my saving grace always was learning about plants and nutrition. So, as in my early 20s and up till now, even before that, just reading recipe books, like I just in my glory, or just learning about what food can do to you, what it can provide to you. And I found out a while ago, actually, that my great Baba, so my grandmother, my Baba's mom, she was also a medicine woman. And when I spoke with a traditional Métis medicine woman, a lot of the medicines are very similar in what they practiced. So I thought that was really cool, and how I'm able to combine the two cultures. And so that's something that I really appreciate. And so going forward, I'm planning on doing my master's in counseling psychology, and wanting to work with plants and people, and just, try and educate and support them in a place where they feel safe, acknowledged, loved, and cared for. I always feel that's super important, to be able to provide that for people, because, to feel safe, to feel your feelings is really hard, and, to trust someone. And so being able to give someone that, right, the opportunity, and for them to be really vulnerable is super important. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself. So I'm just going to share the screen right now, and I'm going to go to my slides. Just give me a second. Okay, can you all see my screen? If you can give a thumbs up. Yeah, we're good. Okay, lovely. Thank you. Okay, is my thing in the way here? Can you just see my slides right now? Oh, it's coming on. Crystal, can you let me know if what you can see on your end?
Yep, we're just loading. Okay, we can see your slides. Looks good.
Can you see like the camera parts, or is it just the slides itself?
Just the slides.
Okay, cool. I'm just gonna turn that off. All right, so Indigenous food, brain, and behavior relationships. So I got 3 pictures here at the top that kind of resemble this a little bit. So the flower is pineapple weed, also known as chamomile. So that helps to relax the nervous system. And then on the far right is Labrador tea. So you can tell that what Labrador tea is just by the leaves itself. So on top, it's kind of like a more harder green kind of surface. And then underneath, it's like this coppery color. And in the middle, there's this little baby dude here where he's, you know, kind of relaxed and everything. So it's showing the nervous system and as well as the brain. Okay, so just kind of overview of I'm gonna talk about. This is a little bit wordy. So just the Indigenous worldviews on the brain and our behavior in relationship to, or in relation to the intimate relationship we share with our food, how experienced trauma affects our relationship with food, the benefits of Indigenous traditional foods, the symbiotic relationship we share with the natural environment. I don't know if this froze or what's going on. Just give me a second here. Oh, I think this is the next slide. Just be with me for a second. I think I'm okay. Yeah. No, my computer's freezing a second. Sorry, guys. Okay, let's try this again. We're good, I think. If this doesn't work, you guys, I have a backup PDF, and maybe I'll use that. Oh, here we go. All right. Okay, we're good. So today I just wanted to acknowledge everyone. So I think that's really important. When I do presentations, I like to go around and gift everyone with a small package of tobacco in some kind of printed cloth. And I always like to say thank you for your time and your energy and just coming here today and learning with me. You know, a lot of us are really vulnerable. We don't have time to share too much. It's not as intimate setting as if we were together. But yeah, so I just want to say appreciate and thank you for supporting me and your interest in this. So I'd like to say, please know that you're enough. You do not need to be fixed. You're loved and you're exactly where you need to be. you're on your own personal journey, or your own personal journey may feel like it is challenging you, and you're also not alone. We have each experienced trauma that cannot be compared, as it is a very personal and unique experience, just like a relationship with ourselves, our family and friends, and our entire surroundings. And the more we compare ourselves with others, the more we become enemies with our surroundings. Ultimately, what is in your control is up to you, your behaviors, thoughts, and attitudes towards yourself and everything that surrounds you. You are a gift. This is taking too long to load. Sorry, guys. I'm just going to switch over to my PDF so that it's not going to be lagging so much. I think it's just how big the PowerPoint is, maybe. I don't know. I'm not really techy here, so. Okay. Okay. All right, sorry guys, this is gonna have to do today. Just so that I'm not consuming so much time with the technology part. Apologies on that. So Indigenous worldview. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. So they're based on psychology, spirituality, and philosophy. So in Greek, philo means love and Sophia means wisdom. The reason why I bring this up is because Indigenous language are very based on that. So when you go and speak with an elder, very much philosophy, spirituality, and psychology combined. And every time I speak to an elder, pretty much put me in my place. Every time that I might be complaining about something or that, I feel very humbled after that experience, and just sitting there and listening to their wisdom and their knowledge. And so it's quite a opportunity and a blessing and a gift in itself. So to help us cope better with our problems, to be grateful for our gifts, the ability to use our heads and our hearts so we can live a good life, be a good person, and do good things for our community and environment. This way of life is based on the 7 grandfather teachings. These teachings support us with our mind, body, spirit connection, how we interact with our entire surroundings. So when I talk about entire surroundings, the land, Mother Earth, animals, everything in the water itself, our friends, our family, the air, just everything that we coexist with, and help us to understand how to hold ourselves responsible for our feelings and behaviors, and to nourish the relationship we share with ourselves. So this presentation is a lot just specifically about us. Right now during COVID is a perfect time to be able to take the time to relax, slow down, and just really connect with yourselves, or with yourself, to have that intimate relationship and grow and nurture it. And so the 7 grandfather teachings. So love teaches us to see the bigger picture that comes with no conditions. Love comes from a place of sincerity and generosity, and is an understanding that to know love is to know peace. Respect should not be expected to be earned, nor is it something that to be asked of others. That respect is the ability to honor all creation by carrying respect within you and what we can offer to our entire surroundings. So truth, to speak our truth instead of taking things personally and becoming angry, would be a skill that takes constructive action when we overstep our own emotional and mental boundaries and encounter anger. Anger is a reminder to tend to a problem we have been neglecting. So anytime that you feel really clustered or angry or just kind of outside yourself, that teaching in itself that an elder shares with me is just to really pay attention to that. You need more time for yourself. And so a lot of these pictures too are local pictures here in Alberta. So this is of Athabasca Falls. And then more of the grandfather teachings. Just trying to be mindful of the time here too. Sorry, guys. Honesty. So honesty teaches us to recognize that we are responsible for our present lives. That also enables accountability throughout the course of our lives. Courage, understanding that suffering is a part of life and finding it within our hearts to show compassion, forgive ourselves and our relations. Courage is embodied and practiced. Humility is acknowledged through an understanding of living a good life is treating all relations with dignity. So even like someone you don't like, still doesn't mean, to be mean to them, right? Why is it that we don't like that person? It has nothing to do with them. And then wisdom. Knowledge and action is wisdom, and the teaching of wisdom is to understand an Indigenous way of being and living a good life. And then this picture here is of Crestview Falls, which is just south of Nordig, Alberta. So each person's relationship with food is an intimate and personal symbiotic relationship they share. And for this reason, our relationship with food is unique and cannot be labeled. So just saying, like, because I've ate a vegetarian, vegan / diet for almost 20 years. But that's something I usually don't tell people because it's a very intimate and personal experience and relationship that I share with food, that, labeling it would undermine the integrity of that relationship instead of like, keeping it really personal and intimate and really special to me. So if you think of this in kinship terms, much like the Cree language, our relationship with food is based on a form of kinship, not possession. So in Cree, Nikawi is my mother. So that is an intimate bond a person shares with their mother, not that they belong to them. So instead of saying, oh, this is my mom, it's my mother, it's that a kinship term, right? And then building healthy food relationships addresses all factors that associate with understanding our self-worth and our external influences that impact our relationship with food. So on this screen, there's Saskatoons, and then there's some salmon that is hanging there out in the Okanagan. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of a little bit of nutrition stuff in case anyone may not know or needs a refresher, or, just bear with me. So macronutrients are, there's 4 of them: protein, carbohydrates, fats, and water. So protein, there are 9 essential amino acids that make up a complete protein. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So they help to build, maintain, and repair body tissues. Carbohydrates, they provide our body with energy for all bodily functions, not just going to the gym, but all of our body and our organs that are moving. Fats, they store energy, insulate and protect organs, help absorb and transport fat-soluble vitamins. So fat-soluble vitamins are A, E, or A, D, E, and K. So when you have milk, it's fortified with A and D because they're also fat-soluble, and milk has a fat content throughout the bloodstream. And then water. So water regulates our internal body temperature, metabolizes carbohydrates and proteins so they can be transported throughout the bloodstream. And then here, micronutrients. So we often forget about these guys, but they're so vital. So vitamins, there are 13 essential vitamins that support bodily functions, metabolize, immunity and digestion, and allow our bodies to grow and develop. And then minerals, so support normal growth and development, energy production, nerve and muscle function, proper composition of bone and blood, and maintenance of normal cell function. So all these, so between the micronutrients or the vitamins and minerals and the macronutrients, they all have a symbiotic relationship with each other. You can't have one without the other. So this is here a lovely lady that I know, an elder in the community. She always shares with me, or shared this teaching with me, and that I'm going to pass on to you guys, that I think is very relevant and really important, and just when you're feeling kind of outside yourself. So if your relationship with yourself, if you're not tending to that every day, if you're not nurturing it, what that can turn into is, a lot of chronic pain, illness, disease, you feel tired, stress, a lot of mental illness, irrational thoughts, behaviors, feelings, anger, irritation. And so what is happening is your body is getting ahead of your spirit. So your spirit's back here and your body's way over there, where it's kind of like almost, with memory too, a lot of people have that kind of like that alternate perspective where you feel like you're not yourself. And when you're not in the middle here, attaining to, your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, she also talks about financial, social, and I put knowledge in there for like school and that, to always be learning and growing. I think that's really important too. So if you're not paying it, or, doing these, it doesn't have to be a lot every day, but trying to make sure you have that balance that's going to happen. But if you do, you have that sense of self-worth, self-love, self-compassion, self-respect, self-aware, and that identity, or your identity. So just not going outside yourself. So here, I'm going to talk a little bit about what fight or flight is. There's also freeze or fawn that's in that. So what fawning is when you're really anxious and you worry about everybody else but yourself. And so, yeah, the pain and suffering that we once experience, our autonomic nervous system that has two branches. So there's sympathetic, and I'll talk a little bit about that, and the parasympathetic, which one is fight or flight, and one's calms the heart rate, I'll say. Cannot distinguish danger when we are feeling what we are feeling between right now and events that happened years ago. So if we harbor hurt feelings and suffering, so things that happen, so those experienced trauma, I'll say, we don't really understand and haven't healed from it yet. And it takes a life, almost like a lifetime, to understand it too, what I found out for myself. And so our fight or flight response within our sympathetic nervous system will respond when it thinks we are in danger. So when we have not healed from our pain and suffering, our mind, body, spirit connection. So think of this too, like the teaching that I just shared with you, when your body gets ahead of the spirit, that the connection continuously reminds us about our hurt feelings, and our fight or flight response inhibits our ability to think clearly. So when that happens, a lot of it is kind of like you feel like your brain's not working, like that brain fog. And so that's kind of you going back and forth from fight or flight. Oh yeah, here's a picture of Canmore, I believe. So this was a nice quote I just wanted to put in here, just a reminder too. So talk a little bit more about this later. So this is more of the mental piece of, I'll say, with healing from trauma. So anxiety is not a sign of sickness, a weakness of the mind, or an error to which we should always locate a medical solution. It is mostly a reasonable and sensitive response to the genuine strangeness, terrors, uncertainty, and riskiness of existence. Anxiety is our fundamental state for well-rounded reasons, because we are intensely vulnerable physical beings. Anxiety deserves great dignity. It is not a sign of degeneracy. It is a kind of masterpiece of insight, a justifiable expression of our mysterious participation in our disordered, uncertain world. So I read a lot about the School of Life. If you guys are interested in that, it's just a lot about emotional intelligence, with seeing things from a different kind of perspective, I'll say. So the human nervous system. All right. So the stress chemicals we create protect us from supposed danger created from the traumatic experience we previously encountered, but also means that what happened could also come back. And so it's protecting us from going to flight or fight when nothing's actually happening in front of us. This limits the amount of electrical activity and blood flow being supplied to the thinking part of our brains, the neocortex, so this bad boy up top, I'll say, and instead directed towards the survival brain, which is a reptilian brain, so the brainstem. And so the brainstem does not think, if you want to keep that in mind. All right, so the two different types of nervous systems. I picked up this picture from a chiropractor office from probably in the States, but it was a kind of good illustration of what's going on. So the sympathetic nervous system, it's not gonna work. The sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, freeze or fawn, increases heart rate, feelings of fear, anxiety. You lose your ability to think logically. And so the parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for the body's rest and digestion response when the body is relaxed, resting, or feeding. So nutrients that supports a regulated nervous system. So potassium, calcium, magnesium, omega-3, vitamin D, vitamin E, C, B, 1, 2, 6, 9, and 12. I'll talk a little bit more about those when it comes to the traditional foods part. So I'm just doing a little bit of overview, kind of what's going on right now physically with the body, and then relaying that more later with the food and everything and connecting them. So dopamine influences mood and feelings of reward and motivation. Dopamine nutrient requirements are iron, niacin, folate or folic acid, which is B9, and niacin is B3, and vitamin B6. So, and then tryptophan. So tryptophan is an amino acid. So you need 9 amino acids to make a complete protein. So this is just one guy. So makes serotonin. So serotonin helps with mood, memory, processing, sleep, and cognition. In the picture here, it says a little bit on the sides. So our gut holy moly, microbes break down tryptophan by utilizing iron, magnesium, B6, calcium, and folic acid, which is found in food, and creates the serotonin precursor 5-HTP. And so, but when you eat vitamin C, B6, magnesium, and zinc, they turn 5-HTP into readily available serotonin. So here, talking a little bit more, the deficits of, if you don't have dopamine or serotonin, you're not having the proper nutrients that you need. So serotonin and dopamine work together to help us understand our surroundings. They are neurotransmitters that link the brain, spinal cord to muscles, organs, and glands that send signals to perform bodily functions. So these neurotransmitters interact with receptors throughout the brain to regulate your emotions, memory, cognitive function, attention span, appetite, craving, health issues, and energy. So the imbalance in these chemicals, so think of like you're not getting the nutrients that you need. It's almost fair to say nowadays with the amount of soil or with soil depletion within the last 50 to 100 years, the amount of nutrients that's in the soil, and then it goes into the foods, the fruits and vegetables that we eat, even the animals that we eat that are eating that. There's not as much as abundance as there once was. And so the imbalance in these chemicals result in anxiety, addiction, I didn't spell it right, behavior disturbances, cognitive disorder, diseases like Parkinson's. So if you look on the dopamine deficit, Parkinson's like symptoms, fatigue, hormonal imbalance, mood disorder, obesity, and pain. So there's a lot of things that can go on with our bodies if we're not, loving ourselves. Here, so the body keeps the score. There's a book by by a gentleman. I can't remember what nationality is. His last name's Spander. So he's like from Holland, I think. So being constantly inside of our heads disconnects us from our hearts. I've been told many times through my life to be more inside my head or my heart instead of my head. There's many teachings that talk about that. It's really important. So when we quiet our minds, relax our body, and take deep stomach breaths, because usually a lot of us will hold a lot of tension in our shoulders, and we'll start getting a lot of neck, shoulder pain into our backs when we're breathing through our chest instead of these nice big belly breaths. Our parasympathetic nervous system, part of the autonomic nervous system that controls the heart, smooth muscles, and breathing, our bodies go into a state of calmness and our episodic memories start to be rewritten. So the teaching of wisdom that I talked about earlier teaches us that our gifts are meant to be embraced within ourselves. So that one thing that you just really makes you feel love, you just keep connecting it over and over again. For me, that is, learning about plant medicines and just helping people, supporting them. I light up, like a kid on Christmas morning tree, and I roll the presents. What is it? So meant to be embraced with ourselves, with our relations, communities, and spirit, and used to their fullest potential so that we can begin to experience wisdom. So knowing that and understanding and becoming more connected with that instead of all of these other things that are happening. So do things that you love and just keep on doing things that you love. And, just building on to that. And then this teaching prevents unnecessary suffering to continue. Otherwise, we will keep reliving painful memories of our traumatic events and create grievance stories. So the grievance stories are just this thing, the same thing that's happening over and over again. It can be really hard to get past that, but just keep in mind that you're not alone, and you're here and you're supported and you're safe. You're safe from whatever happened in the past. And when that happens, or if we keep going back to that, our spirits become weak and our nervous system goes into survival mode. And so pretty much we shut down. That's when we feel anxious all the time, and fight or flight, and we're always trying to be defensive and protect ourselves. So here, engaging in our senses to rewrite our neural pathways, the nervous system, and our somatic senses. So listen to your body and follow your heart and trust yourself. So I just took a quote because I was being lazy. So our nervous system consists of 3 nerve types: sensory, motor, and autonomic nerves. So sensory nerves allow us to hear, see, smell, taste, and feel. So when you're wanting to rewrite your neural pathways, even if you're eating some food, like I really like pizza. So just really enjoy that pizza, see for what it is, you know, taste it, smell it. If you can listen to it, maybe when you're cooking, I don't know. But just engage in all of your senses and really be in that and just feeling everything, right? Our motor nerves allow our brain to command and order our muscles to move or not. Atomic nerves help to regulate our internal organs and how they function. The autonomic nervous system is divided into the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic that I spoke a little bit about earlier, between the calming heart rate and the freeze, fight and flight and freeze and fawn. So behaviors. So riding the wave through hell, what that feels like. So the traumatic events experienced in episodic memories we create are stored in categories that are linked by thoughts being associated with other memories resembling a grievance. The grievances we associate with painful memories will be replayed when the nature of memory is triggered to find the most harmful memories to match a current mood. So whatever we're feeling right now and the mood that we're in, if there's a lot of harm from memories, you're going to try and match that. So if you feel really uneasy right now, it's going to match an uncomfortable memory. And so you're going to be right on par with that. And so it's trying to just rewrite those neural pathways, engage in your senses. We'll go a little bit more through that if I haven't talked about. Anyways, when we are separated from our body and spirit, the grievances we carry can coincide with what we are believing to be true due to the nature of the familiarity of our stress chemicals dispersing through our bodies, risking our confidence, mood, and health by causing high blood pressure when harboring a grievance story. So what this talks about is, when we're over here and our spirit, our body is one spot and then our spot and then our spirit's the other. And, we feel really uneasy and these stress chemicals are coming up and they're so familiar. What happening in our body is we're thinking that that's still happening, right? We're going to that fight or flight response. Our blood pressure's going up, our heart rate's going up, we can't think. There's a lot of things. And so it's just being able to be kind. And the one beautiful thing about this, though, is that we learn compassion, we learn love, and we learn compassion by all this. And the teaching in itself is very beautiful if you just sit there and realize like how strong of a person you are and the strength that comes from being able to just sit there and ride that wave through hell is beautiful. On the other end of it, it might not be beautiful when you're doing it, but the other side of things is really rewarding. And we'll talk a little bit about rewarding in a second here. So, and if we're unaware of our behaviors, what it's doing to our psyche and how the impressionable and long-lasting results of our where behaviors also begins to affect our future generations. So what happens right now is also we coexist, right? It's not just about us, it's other people as well. And so just to be really, I'm going to use the word mindfulness, to be really mindful of that. And it can be hard, but also very rewarding to show that compassion, right? The humility part of it. And behavior can be related to a vicious cycle of hurt feelings and has a result of projection in the form of blaming and shaming others instead of being accountable for reactions to our emotions. Otherwise, our own beliefs, morals, and values are being contradicted by our behaviors. And everything I speak about here is what I've experienced, what I've studied, what I've researched. And when I talk about contradicting our behaviors, yes, or my behavior contradicted a lot of my morals, values, and beliefs. And so, just to kind of take a note, it's kind of nice and very humbling approach to it I found for myself. So behavior, reward system, and food relationships. I'm going to go over this a little bit quickly. So when we experience pleasure like sex, eating comfort foods, drinking, drug use in our body releases dopamine. Our brain associates dopamine with pleasure and creates a reward system. So when we eat not such nutritious foods that bring us pleasure, our brain releases dopamine and ultimately our behavior is being rewarded. So when we're eating a lot of chips or just really unhealthy food or really struggling with that, it might feel good and our brain's releasing dopamine and it's rewarding us. So it's that much harder to break that cycle, right? So this also works for doing small tasks that bring us pleasure, and then the dopamine is being released as a reward and motivates us to continue that behavior. So even just making a little chore list of things to do, or I'm going to eat a salad today, and you eat it and you check it off that list and how that feels like, and just keep doing it, exercising, stay, right? There's a lot behind it. And so here's a cute little cookum, grandma. She is Peruvian. She kind of cropped the picture up there, but she's doing something, I think it was potatoes. I just thought she was really cute and, you know, happy and smiley. So here, physical activity. So get the blood flowing, moving to restore our bodies. There was this really sweet medicine woman. I listened to her lecture the other day. She talked about we can't keep giving to everybody without restoring ourselves. So physical activity in the brain improves white matter integrity. So in the picture here, it shows where my white matter I'm talking about in the brain is, and gray matter. It's linked to faster neural conduction between the brain regions and cognitive performance. So essentially, this increases blood flow for brain health, stimulates growth of new neurons in the brain, and supports glucose and lipid metabolism to bring nourishment to the brain. So white matter carries nerve signals between the gray matter in one brain region to another brain region. The more streamlined and compact your white matter is, the faster, more efficiently your brain functions. The more that you're exercising, the better that your brain is functioning, the more that you're going to feel better, you know, your brain's going to work better, just kind of win-win-win, I guess. So white matter, areas of the central nervous system, brainstem, brain, cerebellum, and spinal cord made up of myelinated axons. So they're white, so that's why it's white matter. It's called affects learning and brain functions and coordinates communication between brain regions. And gray matter, a major component of the central nervous system, and has a key role in controlling sensory and muscular activity. Okay, you guys ready for this? So now on to the food. So that was more like the physical, kind of what's happening. And so here I put a quote: every Indigenous and a non-Indigenous, I'm going to say, person that practices a traditional way of life has a spiritual contract with the land and everything on the land. And that is to give back in a means of living a clean, respectable life. So the lady in the picture here, her name is Brenda Holder. She is the owner of My Gun Trails. She is one of the medicine women that I talk to on a regular basis. She is super lovely. If anyone ever wants to, you know, contact or get in touch with someone, she is more than willing to help. I think it's really, you know, she thinks it's really important, so do I, to be able to support each other in learning that and preserving that part of culture. Okay. So today I have 20, why my presentation is so long, I have 20 foods I'm going to talk about. So the first one is fiddleheads. So at the top, I put the nutrient contents that are relevant to the nervous system and dopamine and serotonin production. So fiddleheads are high in calcium, iron, potassium, as well as protein. So the young coiled fronds from the ostrich fern are edible and can be identified by the brown papery scale, like covering on the uncoiled. So if you can see in the pictures, a little bit of the brown stuff, that's what that's talking about. Ostrich ferns emerge in clusters of about 3 to 12 fiddleheads per plant. So they are ferns, so they're baby ferns essentially before they start to unravel. They are found banks and river streams, brooks, in the woods in late April through early June. I've never personally found them. This is one of the plants that I wanted to learn about, so I put it in the presentation too. And just also be aware that it's important to identify specifically these because other ferns are toxic. And so, yeah, you have to eat them cooked. You cannot eat them raw. And then, so here, I just talked a little bit about medicine part. The middle green part of the root is boiled and eaten to give people a stronger appetite. So wild rose hips, Ipchi bomberry, and then Bigwith C. okini, wild rose. So it's full of vitamin A, E, C, if I didn't say that already, B complex, calcium, potassium, iron, and magnesium. So traditionally the root is used to correct an irregular menstrual cycle. Rose hips have the highest vitamin C content compared to any other vitamin C containing fruit, which I thought was pretty cool. You can just find it in the river valley. I don't think I'd pick it there, not necessarily just because there's a lot of contaminants around. And then 3 berries has the same amount of vitamin C as 1 orange. And it is named itchy bum berry because the seeds have tiny fibers that can cause an itchy bum. So yeah, the picture there on the slide. So the red things, little bulb things, are the rose hips themselves. So come fall, first frost, you can pick the rose hips. Wild mint, so calcium, potassium, magnesium, iron, vitamin C, and A. So leaves are picked and dried and made into a tea to help relieve colds, calms upset stomachs, and to induce sleep. Or fresh leaves are chewed as an aid to quit smoking. So rose hips, another slide, you can also make jam into it, and mescagima poi, which is liquid medicine or tea, just like the wild mint here. The Cree called it a Miskowiga squaw. I have to touch up on my Cree here, meaning good tasting or delicious beaver plant. As a medicine, the plant is used to treat insomnia, soothe teething, menstrual cramps, fever, and fatigue. Besides just like actually just drinking the tea, I'll say, has been found to have a potent antifungal and antimicrobial and antioxidant effects. Wild mint grows in marshes, around ponds, and in the riverbanks. So stinging nettle, I think stinging nettle is pretty cool. My son, so high, like this is probably one of the most nutritious plants. They've been domesticated here in Canada. It's actually a European plant that came over seas during contact, I'll say. And so iron, protein, vitamin A, C, and K, B complex, magnesium, calcium, potassium, put iron in there twice, and sodium. So has the highest protein content per gram compared to any other plant-based protein. Stinging nettle must be removed by blanching in hot water, cooked as a green vegetable, or dried and served as a tea. It's nutrient dense and it's great for the hair and skin. So if you drink it as a tea, yeah, it's going to have a lot of nutrients for your hair and skin. And so with all these medicines that I'm talking about and the plants and the medicines, this is a symbiotic relationship that it's sharing with, specifically with us and for us. A lot of plants we don't realize in nature, they're very kind to us and they never ask us for anything in return. And just the teaching in itself is really is a gift in itself and really important just to, I found it humbles myself. So this one here is morel. So Kinepik nonazikan. So that just means mushroom. So it has iron, B2, vitamin D, zinc, potassium, magnesium. So there are spring and fall varieties. So there's 2 picking seasons. I know the Ukrainian words, one's pitpenkia and one's smorji. And so they grow in a lot of mossy, dead leaf type areas. In the picture behind the words, that's more of the leafy kind that you'll see. When I first moved to Edmonton, I found a lot of these mushrooms growing by the river bank, and they were actually quite large. They looked more a lighter tan color, like the morel on the right side of the screen. So they have a high, very, very high iron content. And so that's really important too when you're talking about maternal health. So when women are pregnant, they need a lot of iron because when babies are born for the first 6 months, they will use that iron that their mother eats through foods or obtains through food, and called iron stacks. So in the first 6 months, they specifically use that iron for them to grow. If you don't have it, the child's not going to grow. So that's also really important. It's a rich source of vitamin D. It's an antioxidant and a phytonutrient and contains good bacteria for the gut. So nodding onion. I've never seen one of these. I'm not going to pronounce it in Cree because it's I watch it. But anyways, the Cree term translates to stinky bulb. So it's a good source of fiber. It's an antioxidant, so it boosts immunity, anti-cancer, anti-inflammation properties. It's a flower. The flowers attract hummingbirds and butterflies, and they're pollinated by the bees. So similar to healing properties of garlic. And the bulbs themselves were used to treat cough, colds, croup, and colic. So a lot for like moms. So a lot of midwives would have used this medicine. Elk. So elk is very, very high in iron on protein too, vitamin B6 and 12, magnesium and omega-3. So it's low in fat, cholesterol and calories compared to chicken, pork, and beef. It has a fifth of the fat that beef has. It's high heme iron content because of how active elks are. So heme iron is an animal source protein and non-heme iron is plant sources. So here I got, this is from Alberta, some place here that has elk that farms them. That put in there, and then there's a nice little elk in there doing like a double take and showing his rear end. Vitamin B, our vitamin B12 is important for memory and learning. B12 deficiency can make us feel lethargic and symptoms similar to like depression. So when you feel like, oh, yeah, it's kind of what it's similar to. Saskatoon berries. So magnesium, iron, calcium, potassium. So Saskatoonina, tree of many branches or wood, or big berry and Cree. Saskatoon berries are considered to be a better source of calcium than red meats, vegetables, and cereal. And that's also really important for maternal mothers, and also, you know, regulating the nervous system. Calcium is super crucial, and as well as it's a precursor for 5-THP that you're making serotonin. Saskatoon berries are considered, oh yeah, I read them. The fruit was preserved for winter by sun drying the berries, either whole or punched in patties. The fruit was used to make pemmican, which it literally means fat prepared, mixed with rendered fat from a bear, so bear grease, and dried buffalo meat. The root of the plant was used for teething, chest pain, coughs, and prevent miscarriages. So the city of Saskatoon is derived from the abundant amount of berries produced in its river valley. And so Saskatoon berries are found throughout all Western Canada. So moose swa. So you got the moose here. This picture is actually taken from my childhood best friend in her front yard. So I thought that was really cool. It's a really good shot. It's one of the things that she's really, you know, passionate about and really excited about all the time is animals and nature. So I thought that was really cool to be able to share that with you guys today. So moose swa, or moose, high in protein, niacin, so that's B3, potassium, iron, zinc, and riboflavin. There are 29 calories in 1 ounce of moose meat. So an ounce is probably the size of like just the palm part just below your thumb. So there's 7% fat and 93% protein. So yeah, palm of your hand is equivalent to 3 to 4 ounces. So moose feed on twigs, stems, and buds over the winter months. It is the largest member of the deer family. To escape mosquitoes, moose will feed in lakes, rivers, and marshes. In the Mi'kmaq language, the month is September, translates to moose calling. The Cree would boil the leg bone several times and use it as soup or tea. And the largest moose recorded weighed about 1,500 pounds. And from where their shoulder is, which isn't by the rear end like the front shoulder, I'll say 2 meters at the shoulder at height. So that's a big guy. Dandelion, spring plant. So it's like this one is like your smorgasbord of essential vitamins and nutrients here. Vitamin A, C, E, K, folate, magnesium, potassium, calcium, fiber. So the roots were used as laxatives and the leaves as a diuretic. The leaves are also a good source of electrolytes, vital for the nervous system, contracting muscles, hydration, and regulating the body's pH levels. Oh, so yeah, that's what electrolytes are good for. The leaves are one of the best organic sources of potassium. Dandelion helps remove excess water. Uric acid, which is if you have rich man's disease, known as gout, if anyone knows the history of that, just eating a lot of really rich foods. That's why it's called that, because only rich people back in the day could afford that. And also it removes sodium. So it assists the liver. It can help clear up skin irritations. We might be going over, you guys, just to let you know. I apologize for that. Entire plant is edible. It's a stomach ailment. So weeds grow in heavily populated areas to provide us medicine and aid us in good health. Lots of dandelions, because of stomach issues, Crohn's and IBS, are predominant in Alberta. So just keep that in mind. So the medicine woman I spoke about earlier, Brenda Holder, actually, she shared that. So if you ever notice the weeds around your home and that, they're there protecting you. They have certain medicines there specifically to aid you in good health. So just kind of keep note of that. Because most people, we end up just kind of killing them, You know, they don't look nice on our lawns. I think dandelions are pretty cool, but that's just me. The three sisters. So corn, bean, and squash. So matam is your corn. Maskimotsis is your bean, which translates to little bag. I couldn't find the word for squash. I used the online dictionary instead of my own. Cut corners, I tried to. So it has vitamin B, B6, zinc, iron, iodine. It's really important if you have O-type blood. Potassium and vitamin A from the squash. It has beta carotene in it. So these three combined make a complete protein. So those amino acids that I talked about earlier, way back in the slides here, all of these three plants will make up a complete protein. There's not many plant source, plant-based plants that are complete protein. Soy is one of them, hemp is another. But anyways, the corn provides stalks for the beans. The bean provides nitrogen for the soil, and the squash provides shade to keep away weeds from taking over the crop. So when this happens, it better yields a good harvest, not a goof harvest I put on there. Indigenous people in Canada, the Iroquois, also known as the Haudenosaunee, I botched that. They are 5 nations within their confederacy. So it's located northeast of Lake Ontario. They are noted to be the first in this nation to grow this crop. This has been documented as a worldwide agricultural practice. Three sisters. And this one, I thought this was really interesting when I found this out a couple of years ago when I was working for Indigenous Service Canada. So camas bulbs. It doesn't say what their nutritional content is, but that's okay. So the camas bulbs are on your right, the flowers are in the middle, and then on your left is bannock, fried bread. So bannock is pagwasigan. So in bannock, there's lots of calcium. So the camas bulbs, they belong to the asparagus family. The plant was used also as a sweetener. The camas bulbs were baked and dried and then made into a powder used as flour to make bannock. Bannock is so just an alternative, right? And then bannock itself is a flatbread that originated in Scotland. So it's a Gaelic bread. In Cree, Scotland is referred to as Pagwasigan Eski, which means literally translates as land of bannock. So when flour was introduced into Indigenous diet during the fur trade, it was a treat as they were nomadic and would not be able to carry around sacks of flour. The flour was whole wheat, and the baking soda powder that they use and used to this day has a high calcium content, has become a staple for many Indigenous people's diets. So yeah, in some places where you don't eat dairy and a lot of Indigenous people are lactose intolerant, this is a good source of calcium that we wouldn't really think of. Here is pin cherries. So little translation with the Cree term there, it means tart berry. So we have 5 minutes left. So just let you guys know, we'll probably be running over time at the beginning. If you have any questions at the beginning of the chat box, if you have any questions or like a copy of the slides in the recorded lecture, just click on the link that I sent out, and then you can just put all your questions in there and that, and I can get back to you and I can email you. So pin cherries have potassium, vitamin A and C. So pin cherries would be mixed with bear grease as well and powdered meat to make pemmican. So this is another berry. So it was just not just Saskatoon's. The inner bark was used to treat eye sores, snow blindness, and inadequate smoke ventilation. The flexible and strong new growth of the pin cherry tree was used for teepee pins, food skewers, arrows, bows, pipes, stems, medicine pipe, tripods, and toothpicks. The wood does not absorb water, so this tree in itself is really good for firewood after a rain. The fresh bark can be used as an adhesive tape, so you just peel it and put it in place. And the bark contains a small amount of cyanide and should be gathered past midsummer, especially for pregnant women. So just be kind of cautious of that. I'm not a medicine woman, so just kind of take everything as an educational purpose and not go out and try these things unless like you know what you're doing, I'll say. So ulagan smelt or ulagan, so kinoseo, which is fish. So it's very, very high in omega-3 protein, vitamin A. It's a good source of fat-soluble vitamins. So you got your E, D, K, and A is also. So this bad boy here lives in the cold Pacific Ocean, and come spring, they swim up rivers to lay their eggs. They saved their entire villages from starvation. So they're also called salvation fish because it was used as a source of energy and was preserved to sustain Indigenous people in the winter. So it has a very high lipid fat content and a dense source of calories. The fish is so oily that when dried, it can be lit and burned like a candle. So they're also called candlefish. So it's smoked as well as fermented using fish boxes. And then cooked in large batches to extract the oils that would be used as lard or butter. And since 2010, Ulugan has been on the endangered species list because of the effects of climate change when early 1990s population collapsed. And so the historical significance of the Ulugan remind us of how vital these molecules are to our survival. So like the omega-3 and all these nutrients. So then again, the symbiotic relationship that is sharing, they helped a lot of our ancestors, whether they're Indigenous or non-Indigenous. We all ate foods like this. Our ancestors did at one point in their lives. So hazelnuts, so Cree translation, peanut willow, vitamin B1, 3, 6, E, calcium, magnesium, iron, zinc. So pagan means nut. So whenever you hear a Cree word that has pagan, it means there's nut in it. So twigs as tea were used for treating heart disease. Husk are prickly, so defense against being eaten. So Indigenous people would bury the husks and allow for the husks to rot. So young straight shoots were made into arrows, show snooze, and drumming sticks. Shoots were twisted to break the fibers of the plant and used as rope to tie things. The twigs, leaves, kernels, and shells have an active ingredient in the anti-cancer drug called Taxol that is used to treat ovarian cancer and breast cancer. So I thought that was pretty cool. So this bad guy here, when I found out about this, I thought it was really cool too. So seal meat. So agik wias. So wias means meat. Iron, magnesium, calcium, protein, B12, omega-3, zinc, vitamin C, and D. So Inuit culture heavily rely on seal hunting as a food source to keep their economy afloat, as well as an essential part of their economy. Or when I already said that, I meant culture. Seal meat is highly nutritious because of the sea vegetables and fish that they consume. So seal meat is very, very high in vitamin C. So if you think up north, they don't have a lot of vegetation, vegetables, fruit, but the seal that they're eating, vitamin C, and the deficiency to vitamin C is scurvy. So if you think about, I hear about like pirates and ships and them getting scurvy, it's vitamin C deficiency because they're out in sea and they can't get the fruits and vegetables that they need. And most of the fish, they eat other fish, not necessarily the sea vegetables. And so it's just, I thought that was really cool how that was just, something they ate and they needed and it was there. They provided those seals for the Inuit people up north to eat. Salmon, so this is sockeye salmon specifically here in Okanagan. So omega-3, lots, high protein content, calcium, potassium, sodium, and B12. So canning salmon with the bones increases the calcium content. So when you're eating the bones, there's a lot of calcium in that, just like with eggs. Eggshells have a lot of calcium content in it as well. So if you were to grind it up, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. You could do it if you really wanted to. Hard eggshells, dry them out to make sure they're dry, grind them, and then you can put them in your smoothie in that. So the Sioux people in the Okanagan region still practice traditional ways of harvesting and preserving salmon, and they're stewards of the land. So here's a lady from Okanagan that is traditionally or practicing the traditional way of how they preserve salmon. Wild rice. So has a high content of vitamin C, B12, 2, or B1, 2, 6, 9, 12, calcium, magnesium, folic acid. So it's found in the aquatic areas of the boreal forests, northern Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and then Ojibwe or Ojibwa, however you want to pronounce it. People are known to harvest the wild rice. So it's seeds of the grass plant that is harvested and only grows in water. So the harvesting term is called ricing. So the kernels are collected. So if you look at this lovely lady here on the top right, are collected by beating their ripening heads with sticks so that the seeds fall into a canoe. She is in a canoe or a flat bottom boat is brought to shore and then dried in the sun to prevent mildew and bacteria growth, and then fire dried or parched, so slow dried, in other words, to preserve the kernels for storage. If you guys ever have a chance to try wild rice, I highly recommend it. The only place that I found that sells wild rice is Sunterra in the south end, close to Southgate Mall. Is the only place where I actually just found just strictly wild rice. If you're interested. Wild raspberries. So iron, potassium, calcium, magnesium, vitamin C, and folate. So these berries are used for medicine for high blood pressure, blood sugar stabilization, to stabilize your blood sugar, purifying the blood. So red raspberry leaves are used to strengthen the uterus during pregnancy. The leaves should be used for fresh or when thoroughly dried. If the leaves are not dried thoroughly, so kind of in the middle when they're kind of like a little bit wilty and half dried, toxins will remain in the leaves. So the fruit is ready to harvest, hope I didn't spell it right, around August long weekend. So a little bit earlier, and then ones that you grow in your garden. And then the last one, hickory nuts, so tree nuts. So it's got B1, thiamine. I've never picked these. I've never seen them. I am interested in them. They're around here somewhere. Magnesia or manganese, copper and magnesium. So those are two different things. Nutrient dense, high fat content. Oh, I did not finish that. So it's grown on the hickory tree. The shagbark hickory produces the nuts that are edible for human consumption. The nuts grow in a green husk that turns yellow and then brown as they ripen. So they're plum size, and with the nut inside that looks similar to a pecan. Okay, so because we're out of time, I just want to kind of close up before I talk about the resources here and this lovely picture of one of the national parks, or in the national park, I think that's Jasper. So in saying all this, I just want to kind of close off with, just keep in mind with your emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical health that all of these things, when we're talking about the brain, behavior, and food relationships, that relationship is very intimate and personal with you. And all these things in our environment and our surroundings are there to nurture us. It's a very, it's a symbiotic relationship, just like our friends and our family, right? And, they're very important, that social aspect of it. And so, in other words, just be kind to yourself. You have many gifts, and yeah, I really appreciate your time. And I just put here some resources for anyone in the Indigenous community. So the Métis Nation of Alberta offers 12 free counseling sessions through Homeward Health. So all you got to do is phone their number, tell them that you're from Métis Nation or you're part of it, and then they will go from there. I'll help you out. Also, the First Nation Inuit Health Branch here. So in Treaty 6 territory, we have the only one that has a medicine chest, which entails us to a lot of health benefits. And so here, there's 20 free counseling sessions with a registered psychologist to anyone or their family members that attended Indian residential schools. So if you're wanting to talk to somebody, I know there is one office, one of my teachers and mentors is Aboriginal Psychological Services. I'm not too familiar with others, but then there's also the Canadian Mental Health Association. They have a 211 kind of share list guide. And if you have any questions, please fill out that Google form and I will get back to you if I know a lot of resources, and I can share that with you as well. And yeah, so hi, Iwago, Kagiao. And then here's a picture of Uhu, the owl, and then Muskwa. Thank you. Okay, so thank you everyone for your undivided attention, and 6 minutes over, I did not bad for technical difficulties. Yeah, thank you. Please do fill out the form if you have any questions. I just don't want to take any more people's time. And Crystal, do you have any other words or any comments?
No, I just wanted to say, Laura, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us today. I know that was a lot of information. I definitely learned a ton from everything you had to share. So like you mentioned, if anyone has any questions or comments, or if you'd like to get a copy of the slides that Laura shared during her presentation, or if you want a recording of today's session so that you can rewatch it, or if there's someone you know who missed out and wants to catch up, then just fill out the Google form. I've copied it in the chat a few times. So yeah, all of the follow-up can be done through there. And again, Kinanaskamun, Laura, thank you guys so much for joining us today, and have a great day.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, everybody. That was awesome.